Welcome into TYT's The Conversation. I am your host, Adrienne Lawrence, and this time I am joined by former Brooklyn public defender, social justice activist, and founder of Zealous, a nonprofit that launches coordinated public defender campaigns and uplifts new media. Thanks so much for joining us, Scott.
Thanks for having me on. Great to see you.
Yes. So, Scott, can you tell us more about Zealous?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I was a public defender. I was a public defender for close to 10 years. We're at this really unique time right now where racial injustice and state violence is more visible, transparent, and widely acknowledged than ever before. But at the same time, the violence, waste, and cruelty inside of courts, jails, and prisons remains largely invisible. So as a public defender in Brooklyn, I saw every day how much state violence occurs every day inside jails and empty courtrooms, separated by jail bars and courtroom legalese. And I saw how all the things we allow our leaders to spend billions of dollars on every year, police, prosecutors, cages, they don't make us safer or healthier, but in fact, they do the opposite. And every day, public defenders and other frontline social justice workers witness the churning of thousands of irrational laws and practices. Yet this critical perspective and expertise, as well as the relationships we have and forge with the people we represent, have largely been overlooked in policy, media, and advocacy spaces. So I got to thinking, alongside folks in my office, how could we, as public defenders, speak out more, share our perspective and expertise about issues that no one was talking about ethically and effectively? How could we partner, and I mean like truly partner, with the people we represented in communities and local organizations to start pushing back against the narrative police and prosecutors enabled by an all too willing media we're putting out? And why weren't we yet? So after close to a decade of work kind of at the intersection of policy and practice, we decided to take these lessons learned national. So Zealous is this national initiative now. I'm doing it full time that supports, activates, and trains public defenders in partnership with community organizations, artists, and the communities and people that we all represent to harness media and technology, develop communication strategies, build true capacity and coalition, and leverage the expertise and perspective of frontline practitioners to transform legal systems. That's the goal, at least. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, it definitely sounds like a hell of an initiative. And also, it sounds like you're making some real change. And I understand that Zealous coordinates public defender policy campaigns, strategic projects, and partnerships in cutting edge new media advocacy. But can you tell us in concrete terms, what is Zealous really proud to have accomplished so far?
Yeah, so we haven't been around for long. I mean, we've only been around for a little bit over a year. When COVID struck, I decided to take this on full time and grow it into a full team. But so far, in just a little bit over a year, we've trained hundreds of public defenders and up and coming social justice champions in a variety of offices and law schools all over the country, and a range of skills they definitely don't ordinarily teach you in law school. We're using curriculum that we co-developed with leaders in a wide variety of disciplines, including predominantly organizers and people with direct experience. And we teach things like working effectively with community organizations, campaign development, using intentional humanizing language. So even though we're well-meaning, we're not going out there and further entrenching the status quo. Advocacy storytelling, engaging people as partners, the people that we represent, working with press, et cetera. And through this work, we support the development of story and narrative-driven campaigns. So our trainings are not based in hypotheticals. We actually are invited in to do trainings that center on issues that folks are working on and that are priority issues in those local jurisdictions. So from non-police response to mental health issues in Harris County, or ending fines and fees in Louisiana, decarceration in Chicago, in accountability in Prince George's County, Maryland. We're working with a range of jurisdictions with a range of partners and kind of following their lead. I guess the best way to explain is just through a quick example of maybe I think our work in Prince George's County, Maryland. So it's really close to DC. And one of our primary efforts really has been trying to think outside the constraints of the typical legal boxes about how to amplify the voices of those with direct experience. So within months of the pandemic, when it was at its worst, in Prince George's County, they were still sending hundreds of people to COVID-infested jail, unable to social distance, no PPE, outbreaks all over the place. You had to pay $4 to get medical treatment during COVID. Judges were issuing boilerplate denials. Public defenders were banging their heads against the wall. Civil Rights Corps, this extraordinary organization, filed a powerful motion with 60 sworn declarations from people inside brave enough to describe what they were going through. And the federal judge cast them aside as unhelpful, marginally relevant. And she complained that she couldn't cull the chaff from the wheat. Traditional legal avenues were not working. There was a court watch program of one. There's one volunteer. So they called us in, and we worked with public defenders alongside an amazing local organization run by two formerly incarcerated women, Kiana Johnson and Carmen Johnson, and Civil Rights Corps, and brought in a range of actors, actresses, Broadway stars, civil rights champions, activists, Black law school deans to read the words from these sworn declarations. We didn't have cell phone footage, but we had their words. And we launched this campaign called Gasping for Justice and went from one person, an audience of one, judges, to millions. 20,000 petition signatures calling on the state's attorney to take action. The county came to the negotiation table for the civil rights lawsuit. And that one volunteer in court watch went to hundreds. And most importantly, though, we helped strengthen that coalition between defenders and people with direct experience. And now they're fighting on all cylinders. We're there, kind of let go a little bit, and we're seeing them now fight together to keep virtual court access open. So we're in a range of jurisdictions, working on a range of issues, using a range of different interventions.
Yeah, for real. That sounds so incredibly impactful and game-changing. That's pretty remarkable, Scott. Also, there's been a lot of conversation and talk about having these nonprofit organizations that are looking to make change in spaces that impact primarily people of color. And I know it sounds like you are 100% in and invested in making this change, but as a white man, I'm sure you've heard the whole white savior narrative. What would you say to those people?
Well, I mean, I only can speak for myself. Fortunately, those who know me and work with me know why I do this work, and it's definitely not for me. I can't change the fact that I'm a white man in the same way that I can't change the extent of my daily outrage over how cruel, irrational, racist, unhealthy, brutal, and costly the system is, and how much it needs change, wholesale, full transformation. So I've used my privilege of voice, of freedom, of access to call out the injustice I know and that I saw firsthand on repeat every day as a public defender. But I'm also working each and every day, and I think we all have to better understand my privilege, to better understand whiteness, and how even the most well-intended things I say, and do can inadvertently harm others. And it's something we talk about a lot actually during our trainings with defenders, knowing when, and it's more often than not, to sit down. Know when you're not the messenger. We don't want to replicate the same kind of power dynamics that we see in court where we're the ones always doing the talking. And more than ever, actually, through our work at Zealous, we're far more behind the scenes, thinking constantly about how to uplift others as an ally, accomplice, and co-conspirator. And so it's a challenging space, but it's an honor to have the opportunity to grow and contribute to the movement at the same time.
Yeah, that makes me really happy to hear, because it is a powerful position, and the access and the privilege that you have, and to see you invest it and to give back in it the way that you do, that is so cool. And I wish more people were invested like that. And so I know you've already talked about the incredible things that Zealous has done, which again sounds incredibly remarkable. I want to know, are there any things that are kind of on the docket that people can look out for?
Yeah, so more trainings in additional jurisdictions. We're building out our law school curriculum. We're authoring a toolkit for jailhouse lawyers, so public defenders on the inside, to add new tools to their arsenal. And we're doing that in partnership with the Jailhouse Lawyers Initiative and at NYU Law School. It's actually run by formerly incarcerated people. Campaigns, we're soon to launch 2 new campaigns built on firsthand accounts in partnership with local activists and advocates and defenders who are in direct communication with folks who are incarcerated. One project in Michigan built on over 100 letters from people in solitary confinement as part of the effort to abolish the torture in Michigan. And the other campaign is built off about the same number of audio recordings from phone calls from people on the inside who wanted their voices to be heard. That's in Texas, and that's going to be on pretrial incarceration. And we're working in Chicago as well. They just passed the Pretrial Fairness Act. There's really remarkable legislation that really overhauls the pretrial justice practice in all of Illinois, but also ends cash bail. And unfortunately, when we make these strides forward, so when we pass cash bail, or when a more forward-thinking prosecutor comes into power, and when the pro-carceral forces feel threatened, they use the same tactics that got us into this mess of mass incarceration, fear, taking on salacious and sensationalist cases to try to take back what they lost. And so we're seeing that already in Chicago. So we're trying to work with local advocates, defenders, and people with direct experience to try to not just defend and be reactive, but be proactive about how to respond to violence and what our responses to it should be. And that's not, it turns out, locking more people up. That only makes the situation worse.
Yes, it does make it worse. And I'm glad that Zealous is around and that you are around to make it better. So can you please tell our viewers where they can find and learn more about Zealous and yourself?
Yeah, sure. So our website is Zealous, and there's a period between the US. So it's ZEALO.us. But I think more interesting actually is to look at some of the work that we've done. So, so stillinprison.org is a current campaign that that we launched in support of a movement in Oregon to call on the Attorney General of Oregon to make an important rule from the Supreme Court retroactive. Stillinprison.org. We're working with local activists, including a former jailhouse lawyer, and gaspingforjustice.org to look at the work that I talked about in Prince George's County. And there's a lot of information there on how you can get involved and help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott Hettinger. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.